Well, I think it starts with recognizing that you have to take a new thinking approach. And it helps to have, you know, the skills to do that, like sense making. So one of the ways I do that with leaders is I work with them to draw maps of events, of situations, of people, of technologies, everything in the organization, to start to get a bigger picture view, and then bring others into the process for making sense out of it. So one of my offerings is something called liberating structures, and I just call them liberating meetings because many people don't know what structure means, but basically, you know, they're future search or open space style meetings with groups that are not designed to be informational. They're designed to be, you know, perspective gaining. They're designed to be sense making in nature. So you have to change the approach you use to bring out the best in people and bring out others' ideas and opinions and interpretations. You have to be aware of how you're thinking about a situation at any time. You have to figure out how you can expand your perspective. I encourage leaders all the time to A, read things they normally wouldn't read, and B, go spend as much time as they possibly can in other industries to get that bigger picture. And this is partly where the serendipity skill comes in. You know, we're used to thinking that that is an accident or a happy chance or, you know, something that surprises and delights us. But it's actually a skill that can be developed because it is the skill of seeing connections between the things that don't make sense. So start looking for things that don't make sense. And one study was actually done. You could even do this as an experiment. Go put a suitcase on your kitchen table. And once your brain gets past the "that doesn't belong there" thing, then you can just sit there for a minute and, what do I notice? What do I observe? What's similar? What's dissimilar? Is there a connection? So it's really training yourself to look at connections that you normally wouldn't put together. Because then when you do that, you notice more of those serendipities that fall in your lap. So it's really some newer, in my mind, you know, thinking skills that leaders need to adapt. And then, of course, there's 100 or more different biases out there that we have to be aware of, and how we think about things and how we frame things for other people, you know, because of just of our own filters. But then framing and reframing is another key skill. Oh, wow, I'm thinking about this one way, but my team is thinking about this in the opposite direction. So how do I bridge that gap? Well, you see a bridge, not the hole, for starters. But then it's the skill of how do I put the frame around what they're seeing differently, help expand their thinking so that they're making sense in a new way and they can take a different action. So there's lots of different things I do to help the thinking aspect. But there's discomfort that goes with that. There's always discomfort with learning. You know, there is no learning in the comfort zone, no comfort in the learning zone. So you have to be willing to spend a lot of time there to expand your thinking and create a safe space for all that richness of diversity to come forward. Because if you don't, it will kill your business, honestly.
How do you encourage people that don't seem like they want to share, or they seem reluctant to share or to be vulnerable? How do you encourage them to share? Because I agree, getting them to share and getting that perspective is so important.
Yeah, it is important. So what leaders can do is one thing I've already mentioned: don't be the first to speak. You know, be the last one at the table to offer a perspective or a point of view. You know, being careful to, you know, draw out your people that, you know, might be more quiet. But again, it starts with trust. You know, so an atmosphere of psychological safety is you have to make it safe for people to bring forward divergent opinions. You can't tell somebody it's a dumb idea when they bring you an idea. You have to demonstrate curiosity. You have to look for connections between others' ideas and put them together. And it's listening in a different way. It's listening so that you can take three things you've just heard and put it together in a way that all of you can take an action and move forward together. So you have to show that you value others' ideas. Certainly you can make spaces for those. There's all kinds of ways companies do, Shark Tank types of setups and variations of that. They do their innovation councils in different ways. And then those liberating structures I talked about is learning how to facilitate a group and diverse opinions in a way that doesn't shut people down. It's another skill set. But the bottom line is, for people to feel safe to come forward with an idea, they have to trust you. And so,
you know what? We talked about that. We talked about that too, Annette, because I hope that people that are watching this understand that if you're a leader today and you're trying to get your team to take an active role in the change that you're trying to make, you can't just walk into a meeting and start expecting people to talk. That foundation is built prior to that meeting. It's built in everything that we do. And it also takes a lot of time and investment in these relationships to make that level of transparency and trust evident. I can tell you as well that we may think as leaders that we had a brilliant coaching session, but it has no impact going forward. And so I think it's critical for us to understand that, I might have thought that I met with somebody and had a really meaningful dialogue. And I always try to when I approach some of these folks that I'm coaching, I always ask them, because you indicated it's important that we recognize that there's a need to shift mindset, right? So we have to make sure that the person that we're coaching recognizes that need to shift. We may, as a leader, often it's our job to influence that change. And so I often task my folks that I lead by saying, how satisfied are you with the results that you're having currently? Would you say that you've reached optimum satisfaction? Because if you haven't, what is compelling you to be afraid to risk those results that you're dissatisfied with in order to make a meaningful change? Because every change in results is going to be, it necessitates a change in behavior and in mindset. And so really trying to make sure that they don't want to fall back on those comfortable ways of mediocrity or of failing or of just getting the results that they just indicated to me that they're not satisfied with. And what you said too about bringing all these other people into the process, it's spot on, because you can't make meaningful change that brings everybody along with you unless they all feel that they are part of that program. But somebody has to lead, somebody has to orchestrate, and somebody has to have that wherewithal to come forward and start building that core team. Get other people in the boat with you. Those diverse opinions that we were talking about earlier. Build your core team, and every situation is going to really necessitate a different core team. If I'm tackling one problem versus another, I may bring in people that I know have experience doing these other things because I need those opinions. And don't just bring in people that are going to agree with you or that are going to agree with each other. You need to be able to see all of the different possible outcomes. And the last thing I wanted to touch on is you said something that I believe very, very strongly. It's that serendipity can be developed. In order to be able to see some of these connections, look, we can control a lot more sometimes than we give ourselves credit for. You can control how you prepare. You can control how you react and respond. And you can control what you do after you fail or after you don't get the outcome that you anticipated or expected. There's one of my favorite lines in one of my favorite films is from The Color of Money. For some players, luck itself is an art. And Martin Scorsese says that over the opening credits. And it's true. You can create your own luck if you put all of the parameters in place. But it's like a sporting event. You put the team on the field, you call the plays, but ultimately they have to be played. You can't control what happens when the game is in motion, but you can control everything that went up to that moment and what you do after that play has been played. And so I think that's why it's really important to understand that when your viewpoint is completely different from your team, or you're looking at more ways to get people into the boat with you, spend time with them to understand, really dive in, understand their perspective, what motivates them, what matters to them, and then what outcomes are going to be meaningful for them. Because if you're driving with only your own desired outcome in mind, where's everyone else? And they will be with you in that boat if you're all driving toward the same things, even if you have different opinions on how to get there.